So this is sort of the companion video to the last one on the Prince Andrew heckler in Edinburgh. This is something I've just read today, and it's disgusting. Um, and like I imagine a lot of people hearing about this will be rather I was going to say shocked, but at this point, honestly, I wouldn't put anything past what I regard as eco-zealots. So I'll just read out the reports from ITV. Doesn't name the reporter. Protester pours human waste over Captain Tom Memorial in Derbyshire Village. A memorial to Captain Tom Moore in Derbyshire has been attacked by a protester campaigning against the use of private jets in the UK. Try and work out that connection. A video of the incident has appeared on the campaign group End UK Private Jets social media page. Maddie Budd, 21, poured waste over the statue of the late British Army officer in Fistley Meadow in Hatton, Derbyshire. Captain Sir Tom Moore rose to prominence during the COVID-19 pandemic when he embarked on a quest to complete 100 walks around his garden in a bid to help raise money for NHS charities. By the time he turned 100 years old, he had raised £32.79 million, which was one of the biggest ever sums raised by an individual, with, of course, a lot of help from the generous public. Speaking about her protest, Maddie Budd, who is a former medical student from Wales, said people are going to say that he's a hero. People are going to say that he's profound, that this is profoundly, obscenely disrespectful to his life and to the NHS he stood up for. And I agree. I was studying to become a doctor because I believe in taking care of people. Um, if we believe that the NHS is important, if we believe that taking care of each other, if we believe that NHS workers are doing essential work, why are we forcing our healthcare system into collapse? Why are we forcing our civilization into collapse? This is where the dystopian hellscape starts coming in. Why is basically no one taking this genocide of all humanity seriously? All of this is true, and the government won't even end UK private. I don't even know where to start with this one. Won't even end UK private jets. Every time one takes off, it pours a bucket of, and I quote, shit and blood onto everything that Captain Tom stood for. Captain Sir Tom Moore was knighted by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II at Windsor Castle in July 2020, and he received more than 150,000 cards on the occasion of his 100th birthday. He died on February the 2nd, 2021 at Bedford Hospital. End UK Private Jets is a group protesting against luxurious and unnecessary carbon emissions, focusing on the use of private jets in the UK. Right, so where do we begin with this one? My viewers won't be surprised to know that she's attracted a lot of ire on social media. People telling her how disgusting she is and what a disgrace she is and so on. But I've long reached a conclusion that these sort of eco activists, they're beyond reason. They're beyond reason. They've already decided that they're right, the rest of us are wrong, and all their methods are legitimate. Now, the sheer arrogance and the degree of self-importance they have, where she's acknowledging her act is disgusting. But it's totally nonsensical because if her issue is about private jets, the logical thing would be to protest a private airfield. Now, that would be at least direct, it would at least be targeted at the source that she claims to be angry about. But you just have to listen to the language there. The genocide of humanity, these are loaded inflammatory words. And I think it's symbolic of the sort of brainwashing, frankly, that is going on with some green activism. I think it's genuinely quite concerning because what these groups are doing is they are telling young people that we're all going to die, that the future is a dystopian hellscape. Nothing's going to change. The government isn't listening, and it's all doomed. And I just can't um I can't put together how she rationalizes that this disgusting act um somehow will stop private jets or stop, for example, help flooded villages in Pakistan or farmers in Ethiopia. It's utterly nonsensical. But this is very characteristic of these groups. Nothing they've done is logical. Um, I mean, if they were actually protesting at oil refineries or private airfields or those sort of things, it would make a bit more sense. I'm still against vandalism, historic buildings, but at least it's a little bit more direct to. They've just got more and more extreme in their tactics. Now, some people will say she hasn't actually hurt anyone, it's just a memorial, but we're not talking about some Victorian statesman. We're talking about a man who died less than 2 years ago. His family is still very much still alive. Um, they will no doubt have heard about this. And I think it's just heartless and disgusting. I think that she should definitely be charged for vandalism or a public order offence. I think hopefully she'll be made unemployable. I do think she should get some sort of backlash. I wouldn't advocate vigilantism, violence, or anything like that, but it's just a brainless act. And she's obviously, I was going to say educated, but we're not talking about someone here with learning difficulties or sort of who's very vulnerable. This is a young woman who trained to be a nurse. I mean, it's kind of alarming if you have people in those sort of fields. I mean, if she really wants to help, actually, she wanted to be a doctor. Professional trade, it requires a lot of intelligence. I frankly find it alarming. I hope she'd struck off from ever registering with the NHS, not just because of this act. She's been involved in other stuff as well. How can she be trusted with patients? If she thinks tactics like this are legitimate, what would stop her, for example? She's in the middle of a surgery and she wants to make a little protest, abandons the patient, and I mean, there's a lot of questions. She is clearly not fit to be working in any professional field at all. She's quite young. She's 21. But not so young that she wouldn't have known this was provocative. But it's just a new low for eco zealots. Quite honestly, I just have total contempt for them, and I'm not the only one because I think they don't really care about helping the world's poorest people or anything else that they claim that they're about. Incidentally, our page is full of left-wing causes. It's free Palestine and all that sort of thing. Which in a free society she's got a right to do, but I think it says a lot. Um, Often there's overlap with this stuff. And when you get older and you start learning more about the world, you start realizing things are not as black and white as they seem. But what concerns me, what I think is one of the most troubling things about a lot of the eco groups that are around now, you have people like Barack Obama and others saying it's inspiring to see young people getting involved, but I think it falls on adults to take some degree of responsibility and say, well, actually, there's legitimate ways to do things. Now, Greta Thunberg, the hero of the eco left, has become nothing but a mouthy little demagogue. She has done nothing productive. When the Glasgow Climate Summit was going on, when politicians, elected politicians, were trying their level best to reach agreement, what was she doing? She was heckling outside. Blah blah blah, I believe were her exact words. Greta Thunberg needs to understand that as she gets older, um, I think the problem is she's in a bubble, right? There's a personality cult around her. Um, so she never hears no. Um, but I hope she does come under more scrutiny because she won't always be a teenage girl. She's going to grow into a young adult, and if she continues to maintain, last year she said sometimes it's legitimate to make people angry, meaning it's okay to. She was defending Insulate Britain and those other groups. I just feel that these groups are. I just wonder where all of this goes because they genuinely believe we're all going. I think they're genuinely scared in some cases, but the approach that they're taking is to hurt everyone else, target everyone else. They seem to be under this deluded idea that if they just anger the public enough, we'll turn against the government. Well, the public are angry with the government for a lot of reasons, but suppose the lack of climate action isn't one of them. Even if they got exactly what they wanted, or ostensibly what they wanted, the United Kingdom accounts for probably less than 1% of the world's total carbon emission output. Um, I mean, they're not doing this in China, to a lesser extent in the United States. I mean, they're not. I haven't seen. I'm sure America has its equivalents, but I haven't actually seen Extinction Rebellion have branches over there. Australia, there's a lot of countries that have a bigger carbon output than the UK, but China and India. Um, so even if they banned every single plane in the United Kingdom, even if they banned every single car in the United Kingdom, even if we all went vegan and a whole range of other ridiculous things that they demand, um, it won't actually change the global situation. That's the irony of this. But I think when you get zealots who are brainwashing young people, I think the likes of Roger Hallam are actually, I think, quite dangerous. Preying on young minds, they're telling them you're all going to die in a few years. It's scaring school children. It's actually very immoral what they're doing. But how do you reason with people who are so dogmatic that they're incapable of any introspection? You just look at these eco groups and you can't reason with them. You just can't. You can't meet them halfway because they're not interested in meeting halfway. So you can't say, well, yeah, we're concerned about the climate, but we disagree with the tactics. No, you're wrong. Their tactics are right. They can do whatever they want. And I wonder what's the best solution because arresting them, the police, they see themselves as martyrs. I think they need to be hit hard financially, very hard. I think they need their bank account frozen. I think there are things that can be done. They're being funded by someone. I think there are ways to take action that means they don't get to martyrize themselves. Because arresting them, they love being arrested. They see it as a mark of honor. They honestly think that they're equivalent to the freedom riders of the 60s or the suffragettes. But again, this shows their ignorance of history. Because in both cases, widespread public support was needed eventually, and that's the only way, for example, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 got passed. President Johnson um, realized that the public momentum was there for it. Now, there is not a public momentum for these eco groups. There just isn't. This isn't that people don't care about green issues. It's not that people don't care about the environment. It's that they're wholly sick and tired of a bunch of entitled so-called protesters thinking they can hurt the rest of us. And I think this is going to boil over at some point where people are going to take matters into their own hands. I mean, frankly, someone might, want perhaps a veteran or perhaps someone hothead will want to attack this young woman, and I'm not saying that would be right. But when you keep poking and poking and poking at the public, and you're trying to enrage people, you're trying to just. I don't think there's anything practical about that. I don't think it changes anything. All it does is make you despised by the wider public. Um, but importantly, it doesn't actually change anything in terms of outcome. You know that expression, the ends justify the means. But here's the problem. They've been doing this for 3 years now. And I say they, I think they're all interconnected. They all are spin-offs of one another. Just Stop Oil, Extinction Rebellion, Insulated Britain, Animal Rebellion. They're all offshoots of one another. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're funded by the same people. So they've been doing this for 3.5 years. What have they actually changed? What have they actually changed? The Glasgow Climate Summit was pre-planned anyway. That was not caving into the demands of eco activists. That was a planned summit ever since the Paris Climate Agreement. It's a scheduled event. The, it's just their absolute arrogant sense of self-importance and their utter failure to introspect, their callous disregard for the public, they're utterly contemptible. I think simply arresting them, I mean, it's not that I don't think some of them do deserve jail. I think if you're going to put lives at risk, you deserve jail. But as those who walked under the motorway did. But I think there should be other more practical measures. Maybe, yeah, I definitely consider cutting them off at their bank searches, make them feel the pressure. Because a lot of them tend to be kind of middle class. They don't seem to be, and this is speculative, I can't prove it, but they don't seem to be sort of really poor people. They seem to be kind of average middle class types. A lot of them are in otherwise respectable professions, retired doctors, clergy. I mean, I think they should be definitely. I think these industries need to step up and say, if these people are going to act like this, we don't want anything to do with them. So clergy can be defrocked. Called doctors who are engaging in this who are actually hurting the public. You know, they're in a profession that's supposedly about helping people, but they're increasing public stress. They're preventing people getting to hospitals. I think they should be kicked off the medical register or however it's worked out. Um, if they're soldiers, they should be kicked out of the military. I'm not saying there has been any so far, but my point is they're crossing different professions. Teachers, you know, their school should kick them out. They should be made to feel that this is not legitimate. Deliberately hurting the public has consequences. And the British public are very patient, but I wonder how long is this patience going to last? If they keep insisting on pissing people off, to put it bluntly, I mean, that vegan group recently that were physically sitting down in aisles of shopping centres, you know, that there wasn't much follow up to that, but I just imagine if you go to reach over for milk to buy the milk, are they going to physically stop you? Which, to which point the obvious question is what the hell gives them the right? They have no right. Well, it's actually part of this entitlement culture whereby we have rights but no responsibilities. And of course, they would say, "Oh, but we're acting on our responsibilities to the planet." But what about your responsibilities to not hurt your fellow citizens? They're utterly contemptible. And this act in this village in Derbyshire, probably there wasn't permanent damage. You know, it's liquid, disgusting liquid, but probably wash off in rain. So could have been worse, I guess. It could have been paint or something. But why the hell would she target that? It just defies belief. I think people would be less angry if she targeted the private airfield. But no, she went to the memorial of a man who was widely admired across this country, knowing that it would piss people off. But if she thought, oh, well, this is going to generate debate about private flight, or it's it's brainless. It's an infuriating amount of brainlessness.